Let's say I spent $100,000 in schooling. Is the first $100,000 that I earn Maaserable or not? Because I could only earn that $100,000 because I spent $100,000 to get that degree in order to make myself.
Let's say I take a student loan. That's not Maaser. You don't take Maaser off a student loan.
No, that's a loan.
That's
not
a loan.
Income.
That's not income.
Correct.
So you get a student loan for $100,000 and you spend it on your business or getting the job or...
To keep it simple, let's say for a degree. So now I have to pay back student loan debt for the first whatever amount of years till I pay it off. So that should come off the top, I think. I haven't clarified this with the big rabbis. But I'm assuming that could come off the top because you only were able to earn that salary because of your schooling.
Okay, so welcome to the Middle Class Podcast. Today's guest, a very chashuv special guest, Rabbi Tzvi Yaakov Stein, Shlita. I consider the Rav, I've given him the name, the Texting Rabbi. Am I the only one?
No, I get all the WhatsApp Rabbi. The WhatsApp's not Rabbi, the WhatsApp Rabbi, the Texting Rabbi, yes.
That makes sense. The WhatsApp Rabbi and the Texter Rebbe. The texting is more Frum than WhatsApp. So
either way, it's embarrassing. So not embarrassing, whatever. It's like, oh, you're the Texting Rabbi. That's what you do. Okay, all right.
Okay, listen, you take it in good stride. All right, so we have a lot to discuss today, and again, I appreciate you coming on the podcast. It means a lot to me, and I think a lot of our listeners will benefit tremendously. And the main focus that we're going to discuss are, let's say, I wouldn't just say the halachas of Maaser, Tzedaka, charity, but also maybe some of the customs, what people do, what people shouldn't do, what they should do. And I have in front of me, I'll just say this first, I have in front of me a PDF from Rabbi Stein that goes through, in short, brief, easy to understand language, how to give
ADHD.
Maaser.
It's for ADHD from an ADHD rabbi. Okay, there you go. That's the...
For the middle-class ADHD clientele.
Yes.
Yes.
Takes one to know one, yeah?
Okay, so the ADHD rebel.
There you go. Another name.
So I have this in front of me as a reference, and I'm going to, if anyone wants to private message after the podcast, they can request the PDF. It's great to look at. I went through it a couple of times, and we're going to discuss based off this as a reference. So I'll start like this. I have in front of me, I'm a financial planner, and I work with people's budgets. And I have in front of me a budget sheet as well. That's also something, if you private message, you can get access to. But I have here a whole list of expenses. And I'll tell you, I'll start from the back end. I have clients, people who I meet with, that are in credit card debt. They're tight, month to month. Yet, I look at the charity section, and again, I tread the line with this. I toe the line, and I tread water. I don't want to, God forbid, say that tzedaka is a bad thing. God forbid. But I also know that people need to have their feet on the ground, and the Rav will, of course, explain that. But I do see people with credit card debt, yet they give, for example, $500 a month to Tzedaka, to Maaser. And they're not paying the debt. They don't pay full tuition. And again, it comes from a good place. But let's start with that. If someone's in credit card debt, do they have an obligation to give Maaser?
Absolutely not. No obligation whatsoever. Everybody has a requirement to give tzedakah. Even the most poor of a person has to give tzedakah. Basically, that amounts to $5 a year. $5 a year is the minimum requirement that everybody, even somebody who lives off tzedakah, has to give that. After that, Maaser is, there's a few opinions. We paskin that Maaser is a minig. So it's not, some say it's a deraisa, some say it's a rabbanon, and some say it's a minig. We paskin very clearly, according to pretty much everybody, that we say that it is a minig. So that's a custom. If you can't keep the custom, so then you don't keep the custom. I mean, it's not like it's a, if you're in debt, you still have to go to Shul, even though going to Shul is probably the rabbanon. You still have to go to Shul.
An obligation.
Right? It's an obligation, derabbanan, but it's an obligation. Maaser is not an obligation, but what throws people off is all the Gemara's, Shulchan Aruch. Shulchan Aruch is actually, it's fascinating, goes through so many different sources that what tzedakah does for you. So that's what I think throws people off. Especially they're in debt. So how am I going to get out of debt? Well, that's your department, but it's not easy to get out of debt, right? So they think, okay, so I'll do every segula in the book, which is to give tzedakah, which is misguided because you should not come on to other people to give you money. So we have the credit cards. I mean, if they didn't have credit cards, what would they do? I'm assuming they'd borrow personally.
They'd borrow.
Right,
Yeah.
so that's clear in Halacha that you cannot, if you borrow money and you owe somebody personally money, then you don't take Maaser. Why are you going to take Maaser if you owe people money? So instead we have these credit cards, which are very easy, right? You just apply for it, they give it to you, they're very happy to charge you 25%, and it's going to snowball and it's going to make you into a worse deficit. And then eventually you're going to have to come on to private people's finances, right? So therefore, if you have a credit card that you should not be giving Maaser. I can expound on it, or you want to ask a different question? I mean, I can talk from now for a half hour straight on this.
I know. That's it all ties together. That's what makes it a little bit. But let's try to. Yeah, that was perfect. You answered the question.
Okay, I'll tell you something that comes up a lot. So you mentioned tuition deductions.
Yeah.
So I know from Rav Palm Zichron Levracha, Rav Feivel Cohen, from the Gedolei Rabbanim and Rosh Yeshivas, they all say that if somebody takes a tuition deduction, and people don't like to hear this, if you take a tuition deduction, you cannot give tzedakah other than to the yeshiva that you're taking the tuition deduction from. That's what they. That yeshivas should know that they don't seem to utilize this. Now, then when you tell this to people, they say, well, the yeshiva's charging so much tuition in order to compensate for the ones that are not paying tuition. That is a big debate amongst the executive directors of the yeshiva. I'm not getting involved with that. I don't know the answer to that. Probably that's not the case.
We need to ask Joel Kaplan, who we had as a guest.
Oh, there you go. Okay, so you get him back on. But it doesn't make a difference. If you're taking tuition deduction, I mean, somebody is going to collect money on your behalf. So how can you go give tzedakah to a different organization? So basically what you're doing is you're taking your tzedakah and you're pushing it on to somebody else to collect tzedakah for you so that you can go give tzedakah.
I would say, again, I know there's a lot, but I would say, I don't know, maybe 70 to 80% of the middle class people that I work with aren't paying full tuition.
Correct.
And yet, even the ones that aren't in debt, they're giving hundreds of dollars to Maaser. And again, one of the specifics maybe we'll discuss also is what is eligible for, Maaser, because they're already paying a Shul membership. They're already paying, the kupat a year without
Right,
Maaser.
correct. Right. So that's the thing. If the school says to you that you have to pay $7,000 tuition, and really the full tuition is $15,000, anything you give over $7,000 can come from Maaser.
It can come from Maaser.
Yes, because it's voluntary. The basic rule with Maaser, I know now we're going to fly all over the place here, but the basic rule with Maaser is what you're required to do, you can't take from Maaser. What you're not required to do, it's optional mitzvah, then you can take from Maaser. Even though that's really not, the ultimate is Maaser should go to poor people, not towards donating. Like this morning, I started paying attention to the Maaser Shiloh, so I actually remember a few from this morning.
This morning?
Yes, a Shul breakfast on a holiday. If, the guy wants to sponsor the Shul breakfast. So the answer is, will there be inspiration? Yes, there will, or shir. So then that means it's a mitzvah. But really, that's b'diavad. Really, it should be going, Maaser money should only be going to the poor. So, but we paskin that you can give it towards a mitzvah too. And therefore, either way, paying a yeshiva is like giving money to the poor. Because if everybody was wealthy, the yeshiva wouldn't have to collect money and everybody, right? So basically, that's essentially like giving it to the poor. But since you're not required to give it, so then you can take Maaser money. So should you take your Maaser money and give it to Kupat Ha'ir, or should you give it to your yeshiva who is giving you a tuition deduction? You should be giving it to the yeshiva. That being said, does that mean you can't give $2 here, $3 there, $5 there? You can. That we're talking about, like, I don't know what you call, how you define major money. Last night, somebody asked me, he's collecting money from tzedakah. He's got family situation, whatever it is, therapies and this and that. And he said he's giving $3.50 a day tzedaka, which in the overall scheme of things, not, but it's $100, but he's collecting tzedaka money. So he said his therapist asked, should he be giving that money to tzedaka? Now, you don't want to bust his bubble and say, okay, don't give. But on the other hand, $3.50, I think, is a little too much a day. So basically, he should lower down that amount.
I think I had someone who was receiving from a gemach, and he asked if he should take Maaser off
from the gemach. Yeah,
that comes up.
Yes. People say, I'm collecting money, I'm making a wedding, and I'm getting money. Should I take Maaser off of that? How do you go take Maaser off of money that you're collecting? Give the money back to yourself. And this is really koil, guys. So they say, I'm in a night koil, or I'm in a whatever koil, should I take off Maaser? Well, maybe yes, but then give it back to your koil, because you're taking tzedakah money. And the biggest one is, should you take off money from money that your parents are supporting you, let's say in koil, your parents or in-laws are giving you, right? So should you be taking off Maaser? So I heard from a Rav, I didn't hear it from him directly, so I won't quote his name. He said, yeah, take the Maaser and give it to your in-laws so that they could kick it right back to you. Right? So who do you think you are? You're taking money to live and you're giving tzedakah on that? Why does that make any sort of sense? So, okay, but the practical application is that we tell them to ask the parents and in-laws, do you want me taking Maaser off of the money that you're giving? Some say, some who are usually better off say, yeah, I want you to give Maaser off that. And others will say, no, I'm not, I don't want you. Could be now, meaning it's considered Maasered money.
Okay.
So say it comes up a lot.
So this is great. We're really going straight to the meat and potatoes over here. But just to paraphrase a couple things we said. Firstly, Maaser is a minhag that's accepted upon people.
It's a strong minhag. It's a strong minhag. It's a strong minhag, but at the end of the day, it's a minhag. You're not doing anything wrong if you can't.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's...
obviously you're doing something wrong. If you can afford it, then you're doing something wrong.
Right. But that's a very important context for the halachas. So let me get straight to the specifics. So we just finished saying that if someone gets a tuition deduction, they should give, if they're going to give Maaser, they should give it to the yeshiva. That's correct. Halacha.
Are there those that would disagree? Probably. I haven't met them. It's halacha and common sense.
And
really.
logical, yeah, it makes... But that's, I would say a lot to all the people out there, that's very important to keep in context, because I'll tell you why. I mean, it's obvious, but it's important because then the yeshivas will have more available. I mean, that's there's a priority in giving tzedakah. Wow. Okay, so let me jump to something that comes up, because I know it's on your sheet also. There's a bullet point here that says one who's not making ends meet. And this can require clarification with the Rav and or financial advisor as far as being exempt from Maaser. So can you go into that a little bit? Someone who's not making ends meet. Okay, so this is a very gray area, because especially with the middle class, are you making ends meet or you're not making ends meet? Can you explain that a little bit?
Okay, so the first obvious is their credit card debt. So if there's credit card debt, then I think we could all agree that that's not called making ends meet. Right?
Oh wow. Okay.
No, I mean, I don't. You're the financial guru, so I'm saying
I agree with you, but people don't listen to me.
Right. So, so I'll tell you where the way it manifests itself is in halacha. Somebody's considered poor if they don't have enough money to live for the year. If you look in Shulchan Aruch, you need what's the amount? 200 zuz. If you don't have enough money to live for the year, then you can accept tzedakah, right? That means even if you have 199, you're allowed to accept another 200. Meaning that you don't just get to the 200. Just an interesting halacha. Interesting. You don't just get. You can take tzedakah even more than 200 if you're under the 200 line, right?
Interesting.
But once you have 200, that means you have enough to live, let's call it for the year.
The year. Right.
Now, who has that money nowadays to live? I'm from the middle class. You have enough to live for the year, whatever. Let's say it costs five child family, 200,000, 300,000, whatever the numbers are. Who has that sitting in their bank? Nobody.
No.
Right? I mean, I don't know, nobody. Most middle class, I'm assuming, don't.
No.
So now, are they considered poor? So they're not considered poor because that's not the way the financial system in America works. We work based on salaries. So if somebody has a job, seemingly he knows the income's coming in, then he is fine. Now you're going to say, okay, so what about debt? So debt is also part of the American society, right? Mortgage, if somebody who has a mortgage and a lease, is that called in debt? That's not called debt. That's the way we roll.
Right.
Right.
Very interesting.
But credit card debt, at least from my perspective, that's extra debt that you're not supposed to be carrying.
That's right.
And it's 25, 30%.
High
You know that
interest.
the reason why the Torah says ribbis is not allowed is because it snowballs and it creeps up on you, and
Venom.
before you turn around, and then your debt has quadrupled, and then you really can't get out. Although the American system of claiming bankruptcy and just telling the credit card that you'll pay pennies on the dollar, that could be helpful. No, you cannot do that, lechatchila. You can't run up the credit card debt and then say, I'm just not going to pay it.
Oh, boy.
But that's
happened?
People have asked that, sure. Sure, people have asked that.
Okay.
In the financial crisis, people were asking, can we just take out credit cards and
That's
run
not
it
an
up? No, you cannot do that. You cannot do that. But that being said, if you are in debt and you can't get out, then you can take advantage of the system. I don't know what take it. Meaning, if that's the system, you go bankrupt. Companies do it all the time, right? Companies that are publicly traded go bankrupt. That's part of business. But that's only if you got yourself into that situation. So the point is that debt is part of every business has debt, right? So that's normal. But abnormal debt means you're not making ends meet. Now, as it pertains to Maaser, this is actually last week in Kitzur Shulchan Aruch Yomi. So, people don't want to learn Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. Say, we don't paskin like Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. So therefore, they don't learn Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. So what are you learning instead? Well, nothing. So if you go up to the next world and you say you paskin like Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, they're not going to do anything to you. At least I'm assuming they're not going to do anything. So one of the major leniencies that the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch says is that Maaser money, I think I bring it in there. I think so.
Yeah.
Maaser money gets calculated after all expenses are paid. Whatever you have left, you take 10% off of that, not off of income before expenses.
So after all expenses. So
meaning, so you paid for your car and your insurance and your tuition and your food. Whether vacation is included in normal expenses, I'll leave that. I'll say that's up to you. I would think that it is
Basic
in today's
vacations.
society, right? Obviously within the norm. And after that, if you have Maaser money left over, then you take 10% off that. That's the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch's opinion. We don't paskin that way. But the Gedolei Posek say for somebody who's like a Rebbe or in Chinuch, certainly should rely on that. Going back to what we said before, which is that you're taking tzedakah money, so why, meaning you want to raise in salary, so they're going to have to go collect more money for you, and then for you to go give Maaser to somebody else, why don't we just do a wash, right? Meaning, so those that are concerned, like we said, it's a minig to give Maaser, can rely on the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch's opinion, which is, let's say at the end of the month, you have an extra $500, so you give $50 off after expenses, and you be Mekayim, at least according to that opinion. Even though, again, we don't paskin that way. Normally we paskin that it's Maaser gets taken off from the top, from when the income is post-tax, although there are those say that it's pre-tax.
Right.
But another mistake, once we're on it, with those that are having a trouble making ends meet with giving Maaser, a lot of people are not aware that there's a lot of deductions. The same way you tax deductions, you have a lot of deductions that you take off initially. Like if you have to pay a babysitter, then that comes off the top before you calculate Maaser. Not that we're looking to skimp on Maaser, but it's just, right? It's that people sometimes say, I just found out about this, and they say, I've been doing this for years, so now can I have a credit from Maaser, that's already not so simple.
Right. So let me cut you off, Rabbi Stein,
Yeah.
because you're a Mayan Hamas Gaber.
I warned you, ADHD. We can go from one subject to the next.
I was actually going to get to that, but a major thing came up in the middle. And I'll tell you how I come across this, because between me and you and everyone else out there, I could not care less if you spend money on Maaser or not. Kol hakavod if you can, and you should. All right. But this is how it comes up for me. I have someone who's coming to do a financial plan. They don't have money for their children put away for their weddings, let's say. They don't have insurance, life insurance and disability and sometimes long-term care when they're, down the line a little bit. They don't have money put away, let's say, for retirement. Now, they're okay giving their $500 a month to Tzedaka, even if they're not technically obligated based on everything we're saying, and maybe they're doing something potentially wrong by not giving it to the yeshiva. But what would you say the priority is there? So I'm the financial planner, and I'm saying to them as a financial planner that you should start putting money into your financial security and then talk about the Maaser. $500 a month could go a very long way in a financial plan with compound interest and investing, and especially with insurance. Maybe we'll talk about that in a second also. But that few $100s a month could make a difference in someone's plan. So what would you say specific to that question?
Meaning, so basically you're asking, should you put that money, somebody who's having a hard time making ends meet, should
No, they're making ends meet.
They're making ends meet, but
with $500 to Tzedaka, but no financial plan.
$500 Tzedaka is their Maaser.
Is their Maaser.
Is their Maaser, but no financial plan.
Right.
So I would think that the answer to that question is, it's a tough question.
Yeah,
it's a good question. It's a good question, right? So I would say that what is considered the norm for America, including non-Jews in the equation, what is the norm? Is it considered the norm to put away that $500? If that's considered the normal thing to do, which I don't know, is it? I'm not sure.
I mean,
it should be. Whether it is or it's not, I think most don't. I think most don't. Most can't. I think. But if it would be the norm, the absolute norm, then they should put it away.
Mm-hmm.
If it's considered abnormal, then they should give Maaser first.
Mm-hmm.
So I personally would lean towards maybe giving the Maaser, because now is now, and you're not gonna be happy to hear that. Hear that answer. Right now is now. We have to have, you do have to have B'tach, and that's part of the whole concept of giving tzedakah. Giving tzedakah is that I'm acknowledging that my finances come from Hashem, and 10% of it goes. There's a 10% automatic that shows that my money is coming from Hashem, and that acknowledges it, and I'll worry about the future later. Mm-hmm. That being said, if it's the normal thing to put away, and if you think you're going to have to come on to others, so then you would have to.
So that's a big one.
That'll be part of the discussion.
Again, this is a discussion. Yeah, I mean, I think people, if they don't put away money today, they will come on to others potentially.
Right. So the question is who those others are. Meaning, I have this theory. I don't know if it's true, but I don't know if it's within the
it's all good.
Conversation.
All good.
But I believe that most Frum Yidden have somebody who's got some money that can help them out that they're related to.
I've said that. Yeah.
You've said that? Okay, look at that. There we go. I think that's something, and those that don't, those are the ones who we have to collect for. Meaning there's an uncle, there's a grandparent. I mean, otherwise, what's going on in our society is not sustainable. But that's your side of the equation.
I can't believe it. I'm going to have to shout this out because the Rav was mechaven to me that, if I can say that, that the way I phrased it in Balabatish terms was that there's something called Jewish economics. So there's here, right? Because I don't know if you heard of Adam Smith.
And I know the name, but
you don't have to show the Welt that you have some secular knowledge. But Adam Smith said too much from you went to Yeshiva for Rockaway?
Yes.
Okay, there we go. So he said there's something called the invisible hand, how money moves around, and I said the Jewish society, for it to sustain itself, there has to be someone receiving and someone giving. Maybe it's family, maybe it's gemachs.
I believe so. I'm saying, I don't know. I speak to people and say, you have help for the wedding? And they say, yeah, I have a grandmother and an aunt or uncle or a cousin, and they're helping me out. And even if it's just a loan.
Mm-hmm.
So it's...
Oh, wow. I see. I feel very validated. Thank you so much.
Okay.
That was good we brought you on. But Rebbe, now, so I'll tell you the other angle to all this, because this is what you were mentioning, and now we're going to come back to it. So we have someone, let's say they give tzedakah, they don't have a financial plan, but they're taking it off of their gross income. So they make $500,000 in sales, automatically, even though he has to pay for the cost of the goods and the employees and software and bookkeeping, that's where I pay $50,000 a year, 10% of 500,000. Is that, and again, if they can do that, I guess it's good, but do they have to?
No, they do not have to. No, that's not called income.
That's not called income.
How can you call that income? It costs you money to earn that money. Right? If you have to pay shipping and you have to pay accountants and whoever and whatever, that's not income. Right? So there's no, I don't believe that there's even a chumrah to do that. However, it can go under, like the Gra was of the opinion that you're supposed to take off 20%, not 10%. He held that was the halacha. Now the halacha says we don't pass in that way. We say 10%, but 20% is good. But this is an important point also. More than 20, halacha is very clear. You are not allowed to give. You are not allowed to give more than 20% unless you're very, very wealthy. Because you might give more than 20%, you might have to come on to others. So you see that the halacha takes into account, don't overdo it, even though, right? See, it's a balance. It's a balance. You have to know, like, where do you draw the line between betachan and practicality, I guess, even though that might sound like apikorsis a little bit because it should really be tied in together. But
no, that's why we need a Rav.
So you can't give too much. So if that would cross over into the 20% category, then that would absolutely be wrong to do that.
So just to reiterate that, so if someone is giving Maaser from an area that they don't have to, potentially could bridge over the 20%,
right,
and then they're in an area that's problematic.
Correct.
Wow.
Correct.
So let's go back to our gross income scenario. What are the specific, and I have the reference here, but let's do them at least verbally. What are the deductions that someone can take before they take off the 10% from gross income?
Anything that goes directly to earning that money comes off the top from the gross. So that would be if you see the vague areas. You want to know the vague areas? I mean, the basic areas we can figure out. Rent.
But people don't know basics. So
okay. So we'll start with the basics. So let's say paying for a secretary, right? Paying for whatever employees that you need to pay for. That comes off the top. Rent, insurance, heat, electric, anything that you need.
For the business or for the personal house?
For the business. This is all for the business.
Oh, for the business.
Now, where it gets vague is when you have a home business. So we're not the IRS. So we're not going to make, this is tzedakah. So we do want to give tzedakah. That's the ultimate goal. So we don't have to
You mean giving money for taxes is not tzedakah? Uncle Sam.
The truth is, it probably is a form of tzedakah. Right? Okay. How much money? The biggest supporter of Torah in the history of the world was probably the United States government, I'm assuming.
The Israeli government is not...
Well, they're getting it from the United States government. Okay, but that's a whole different... The United States government certainly has a hand in the Israeli government's tzedakah, but it's certainly, the United States government is definitely up there. And also they're giving tzedakah to non-Jews too, which is allowed in order to make a Kiddush Hashem, etc. So you can maybe spin it that way. But without skimping, but let's say somebody has to buy a suit. Let's say he has to buy a suit. He's only buying the suit because he has a business meeting or whatever. He has to have a nice suit. But he will wear that suit to a wedding or Shabbos, whether that's the correct thing to do or not, but he will. So now the question is, can he take that suit off the top? So he has to be intellectually honest with himself and say, well, had I not bought this suit, it's only for business, and I could take that off the top also. Cars is very common. You need a car. But the car, if the only reason you bought the car is because of the business, if you wouldn't have the business, you would not have bought that car, then you could take the car off, even though you will use the car for yourself. But But since the main point that you had the car, so then that can come off. And you can come off the top.
So again,
else?
the basic rule. Maybe
Yeah.
you say the basic rule again that anything that you needed to earn the money to spend, let's say to earn the money, is not included in the calculation.
Correct. It comes off the top.
So I have here written down, again, we'll just go through that one more time. I have written what you wrote down. The income taxes, real estate taxes on the business, employee tax, which I guess is like workers' compensation and things like that, right?
Right,
Like
yeah.
that. Insurance on the business and merchandise, okay. Salaries to employees, and then travel costs like gas, tolls, I guess hotel stays for business,
Yeah.
all that. Travel, airplane tickets for business are okay.
Correct. That's even if you end up staying an extra day because you want to take a day off. Even so, you would be able to. Now, the extra night hotel stay, maybe not.
This is very interesting because it's very similar to tax law.
Right, it is. It is. Yeah,
Interesting, because that's not a deductible expense. Okay. And then there's one more thing here I want to stress.
Also, one question that comes up.
Yeah, go ahead.
What if let's say I spent $100,000 in schooling in order to get my accountant job, let's say. So now, is the first $100,000 that I earn Maaserable or not? Because I could only earn that $100,000 because I spent $100,000 to get that degree in order to make myself.
Well, again, the loan, let's say I take a student loan. That's
Right.
not Maaser. You don't take Maaser off a student loan.
What do you mean, Maaser from? No, that's a loan. That's
a
not
loan.
income.
That's not income.
Correct.
So you get a student loan for $100,000 and you spend it on your business or getting the job or.
Well, let's to keep it simple, let's say for a degree. So now I have to pay back
degree.
student loan debt for the first whatever amount of years till I pay it off. So that should come off the top, I think. I haven't clarified this with the big rabbis, right? But I'm assuming that could come off the top because you only were able to earn that salary because of your schooling. That's what I would assume. I'm not going to say that definitively, but because maybe it's a different calculation because, like we said, schooling is a normal thing to do in America. So maybe that's considered standard debt as opposed to.
Well, I can say from my end, standard, but just again, reiterate that if someone is paying back student loans, technically that might come off the top because that was needed for them to get.
They wouldn't have their job. They wouldn't have their income without the student loan.
So doctors, PAs, social workers, mostly medical field people that have $250,000 a lot of most of those people.
The middle class because they went to college as opposed to buying nursing homes and whatever.
Well, we're going to get to nursing. I told you we're going to speak about nursing homes. Oh boy, we're going to get to nursing homes. The few, and the what's the slogan? The proud, the few, the proud.
Yeah.
The few, the proud that are in the medical field that have $250,000 of debt and they're paying it. And again, I don't know if that's normal, but it's a lot of times higher interest. They can take that potentially. Ask your local Orthodox.
I personally believe so, but I would say to ask your
question. LOR.
I don't like to personally poskin anything on my own unless I've seen it from a source.
Oh wow,
that's my own. Either it's a cop out, which I don't know, whichever way it is. It takes.
Imagine how many people would be texting you. If you say your own things, people would be texting you.
Yeah. Well, okay. It's either good or bad, but. So I haven't confirmed it with anybody. At least as far as I remember, I haven't confirmed it. But that's what I would think. Yeah,
that's a big one.
Yeah,
and one bullet point here: babysitting. Right. So let's talk about that because you see, you wrote a qualification that if work is the only reason why you have a babysitter, and also on that same note, cleaning help. So these are huge expenses. I can say the average person in the Frum community spends $400 to $700 a week on cleaning help. So that's maybe $2,800 a month on cleaning help. Babysitting is also, I guess daycare would be considered babysitting. So what about those? Those are also off the top?
So it depends why. I actually had somebody that just asked me this week also. They have a cleaning help, but because the wife, I think that was the scenario. Either way, their wife just expanded her work hours. So now they need that cleaning help for another, let's say they had the cleaning up for 4 hours a day, now they're going to up it to 6 hours. And the only reason why they're upping it to 6 hours is because the wife just got a job. If she wouldn't have the job, they would not have that cleaning up for the extra 2 hours a day. So therefore, that comes off the top, meaning she wouldn't take that job unless she had that extra 2 hours. So if the only reason that you would have babysitting or cleaning help, etc., is because of your job, then you could take it off. Then you could take it off the top.
So cleaning help, let's say someone very technical, someone who has, meaning because they work, they can't clean the house, therefore they hire cleaning help. That's considered.
That's for sure.
That's still considered using it for your.
Yes. So now,
work.
Right. So now, 100%. If they don't have time to clean their house, and the only reason why they're hiring the cleaning help is because of the work. Meaning, if they already have the cleaning help, and then they decide to go get a job, then obviously that cleaning help is not connected to your income. It's because you got a job and say, you know what, I can't keep this job unless I have the cleaning help. Then you could take it off the top. Now, where it gets interesting is where, and a lot of times this becomes into a shalom bayis thing. The husband says, what do you mean? You have time to clean. It's just mentally, the woman says, I need to have that cleaning help in my house. Whether we actually need it or not is immaterial. I need her there just so I can go to work calm and not stressed out. Is that enough of a need? I would think it is. I would think that it is. But that's where it gets a little dicey. Then that's usually between the husband and the wife, and because he doesn't want it, he doesn't want to.
I'll jump in because you also wrote in the sheets that if someone needs to spend money on shalom bayis, then that's
another vague one. Yeah, that's another vague one. Yes.
So technically, if you have shalom bayis problems because of cleaning help, spend the money on that.
That's 100%.
No,
I would 100%. If hiring cleaning help is going to help your shalom bayis, then that is what. If you don't have shalom bayis, that leads to the number one. They say this is what mechanchim say. That's not my department. That shalom bayis, lack of shalom bayis, is what leads to kids having difficulties in school and socially, and then you're going to just end up spending that money on therapy. So. Why don't we just cut that out and have the shalom bayis? That's again needs to be calculated. That's why everybody has to discuss it with. Well, it can be a Rav or it can be somebody else. It's just even getting a third party, which you may not want to divulge privacy to other people. So you go to a Rav who will have hopefully the private and the experience of dealing with people like that. But even if it's just to discuss it with anybody third party who's objective and could tell you, no, you're not thinking, your cleaning lady is there because your cleaning lady is there, having nothing to do with your work. And I mean, that's you just get a third party involved to just help you clarify
it. Okay, let's go on to another part that I wanted to bring up. I'm again in the financial planning field. There's investments, there's stocks, there are bonds. So I think this is pretty clear and it makes sense that if you don't sell or make any, let's say, for example, a lot of times it comes to a scenario where I'll use bonds, for example. Someone has a bond, they put in $1,000, they get interest from the bond, but that goes right back in to their investment. A mutual fund, for example, where you have all this mixture of stocks and bonds, and there's interest income within those investments, but it goes right back into the investment. Would you say that that's money that he's earned or gotten as income, so that now he has to pay Maaser and they have to make a calculation every?
Right. So that's actually at least 3 opinions, if not more, on this how to do this. But back then the Posek didn't have this, but they had the example that they're using is you have a grocery store. So if you have a grocery store, you sell a bottle of milk. And you made 10 cents. So now do you have to go give a penny on that? Even though at the end of the day, the leftovers of your milk got spoiled and you're going to have to throw it out. So you're taking a loss on that. So do you make that calculation every second? Or do you, or whatever, at every purchase and every sale and every loss, right then and there, you can end up losing all your money if you do it that way. Right? You're giving Maaser on all the, you're not calculating. So the Chofetz Chaim says in his Sefer Avos Chesed, which is one of the major sources, gets less coverage than the Sefer Chofetz Chaim Mishnah Brura, but the Avos Chesed is the Sefer that's the go-to Sefer on these halachas. And he basically says you should make a calculation once a year. Usually before Rosh Hashanah, make a calculation. Okay, let's draw the line. Sort of like taxes, April 15th. Well, actually, it's December. Well, yesterday, right? But that's where you have 2 months, right? Meaning the line is drawn at the end of the year. Now, what was your income? 1 year you can make 100,000. Next year you lose 100,000. You can't offset it, although sometimes in stocks you can, depending on how you. Right, depending on how you structured it, but you just draw that line, and then whatever's in your bank account, then that's what you give, and that's. But it's very difficult to do with stocks and bonds, and it's coming and going. I mean, I personally tell people just when you pull out the money, as long as if it's in a stock account and you're trading and you're going back and forth and IRAs and bonds, just once you pull it out to spend, that's when you should. It doesn't have to be necessarily done once a year because it's not structured that way.
It's like one, It's like one mutual fund.
Correct. And it's all,
So it's, okay, I think, that's how I sort of looked at it. I think, again, a mutual fund, the way it's looked at is that that is the investment. It's like one stock. The whole package is one stock. And the Rav is saying that calculate that at the end of the year. And again, only if you sell it also. Like
correct.
If you made money,
if it's unrealized
gains,
then of course not. It's only if you did a sale. So the problem is that you did a sale and then you just put it right back in. What's that thing when you buy a house and flip it? That's you don't pay taxes. 1031. 1031. So what do you do with a 1031? Let's say I sell one house, but the only reason why I'm selling it is to go buy another house. Right. So then you don't have to take off Maaser because you're only selling it in order to go. Now, where it gets more complicated for the private middle income is, let's say, they bought a couch, and they have the couch for 10 years, and now they're selling the couch on eBay for $1,000. Is that called income, or is that just defraying the costs of the original, what the couch cost them 10 years ago, right? Or they're selling this couch in order to upgrade to another couch. So they're really not making that income. Right? So I would say that if you're selling the couch, meaning if it wasn't your intention to buy the couch and then to sell it, then it's considered new income. But not if it's going to into another couch.
Another couch.
Right? Yeah. And then that's not income. You're selling this in order to put it into something else. So it's not your income is unrealized. At that point.
It's going into something else. Right. So here's another thing that comes up. Actually came up very recently for me. Are you familiar with a donor fund?
Sure.
Donor funds. So now donor funds, I'll just explain briefly. The donor fund works that you can put money in and get a full charitable tax deduction right away, even though you didn't specifically give it to a specific charity or whatever. The IRS allows you to get an upfront deduction, and it's an unlimited deduction technically. If someone puts in $200,000, $100,000, whatever it is, a donor fund allows you to get that upfront tax deduction. And I would say 90% of the time, people have that money invested within the donor fund because the money is not being used right away to give to Tzedaka. It's sitting there for a little bit of time, and it's invested so that it grows. So firstly, is that mutar? To have money that's going to be Maaser money, go into a donor fund. And I'm not saying to, let's say, go into a donor fund. I'm assuming that is okay because everyone has it.
Right.
So that is okay. You never know.
There is a philosophy that what everybody does can't possibly be usher. Okay, right?
Okay, whatever. Maybe you'll explain that in a second, how that works. And also we'd be taking parnasa away from a lot of people. But again, I'm not the rabbi. So... But could it be invested? So let's talk about that. A donor fund, why is it okay to put Maaser money? Is it okay? And why would it, if it is, or the opinions?
So really halachically, there's something called bal ta'acher. which is that you're not allowed to push off doing a mitzvah. So really, it has to do with karbanos. So if you say you're going to bring a korban to the Beis Hamikdash, so you have up to 3 Yom Tovim to bring. So we say that there's an Isser of Baal Ta'achar by Tzedaka too, and you can't push it off. So basically, this is where it gets a little confusing with these donor funds. If you have somebody knocking at your door and you've pledged tzedakah, or you have Maaser money in your Maaser account, and there's somebody that knocks on your door and is legit, but without getting into whether they're legit, but let's say assuming they are legit, so then you're mechuyev, you're required to give your tzedakah right away. You can't hold off. But again, that's where things have changed nowadays, because everybody's being bombarded, emails and all the whichever way we get bombarded. So it's very hard to figure out, to give out. I have to give out all my money now. I have to first figure out who I want to give it to, et cetera, et cetera. So that's why the donor fund really is okay. But in theory, if you had tzedakah and you had the people there to give it to, then you'd be required to give it to them. But because everything requires research and time, so we allow to put into the. It seems like we allow. It seems like we're allowed to put it into the donor fund. But really, it should not be invested just for the investment's sake. Meaning, if you put it into the donor fund because you don't know where you want to put it yet, and therefore it's going to earn interest in something very conservative, right? It can't be anything crazy. Right. Crypto, I don't know where you fall in the crypto thing, but putting in the crypto is probably not such a good idea with your Maaser money. And by the way, the interest goes to the Maaser, not to you. People do ask that.
1 second. So why is it? So crypto, because let's say someone does do that. What happens if they lose money?
So if he was irresponsible, then it could very well be that he's taking the money from the tzedakah, and he irresponsibly lost tzedakah money. So
he owes it.
He owes it to tzedakah, yeah.
Okay.
He owes it to tzedakah.
So very conservative.
But it should be conservative. It's got to be conservative. And meaning it has to be because you're putting it in there because you don't know where you're putting your money yet, but not just to put it in there to invest it. That being said, there's a very interesting question that comes up: why should I give, like you said, putting away money to make weddings? So why should I give my Maaser now? Why don't I just put my Maaser into an account to pay for my kids' weddings?
Which you can use Maaser for.
In the basic halacha, you are allowed to use Maaser for your kid's wedding because you're not required to make your kid a wedding any more than I'm required to make your kid a wedding. I mean, if I help
you don't have to make your kids weddings.
Where does it say anywhere that you have to make a kid a wedding? You have to get them. A man has to marry off his son. Yes, that it says. A father has a responsibility to get his son married. It doesn't say that he has to pay for his son's. It doesn't really. If you want to take it to as a disclaimer before we continue, we paskin that you cannot use Maaser money. Obviously, if you don't have the money, then for sure you can use Maaser money. Because really, you only have to support your kids up to the age of 6. According to Shulchan Aruch, after the age of 6, any support you give to your children can really come from Maaser because you're not required after the age of 6. How that worked back then, I don't even think we can grasp exactly how that worked, putting a 6-year-old out into the world by himself, but we're obviously much more immature nowadays. Yeah, so in many ways, but in theory, you can take Maaser money after that because you're not required. Like we said, the main thing is if it's something that you're not required to do, then you can take Maaser money. And it's a kid is considered an ani. Right, because he has no income. Get this question all the time from teenagers and guys in yeshiva. They say, I make some money tutoring. Should I give Maaser? Right? So, well, do you have enough money to live? Well, no, I only have enough money to live because my parents are nice enough to let me live in their home and they support me. So that means really you're poor. Right? In theory, you are poor. Now, should you be giving Maaser anyways? Yes, because you're taken care of, so you should. But it's a little bit vague. So, so in theory, you can use Maaser money to pay for your children's wedding. But it's. So the question is, can you take money and put it away in order to help? Let's leave the wedding aside. Because wedding, that's considered a normal thing to do, and you cannot use Maaser money, at least, again, initially. Right. But cholent, for sure you can use Maaser money. Right. And even seminary. It's in there, I think. I haven't looked. I should have looked at it before. I haven't looked at it in a while. But seminary, anything optional it can come from Maaser.
The Rav said that seminary is optional. Okay.
Yeah, it should be.
That was another whole podcast.
Yeah, seminary should be optional. The option should be not to go. But
Look at that.
Okay, there you go.
No disclaimers before that?
No disclaimer. I don't care.
Seminary is optional.
It doesn't bother me.
You hear that, Ari Boyanju? Seminary is optional.
It's optional, so you can use Maaser money for seminary, assuming that they're going to gain something religiously from it. If it's just to babysit a girl for a year to have a good time in Israel, then that's not Maaser money. But point is that if I know I'm gonna want to support my children in kollel, so why should I give? So then I have a guy knock on my door, and let's say my child's 10 years old. So the guy knocks on my door and says, "I'm making a kollel." I said, "That's very nice. I want to make a kollel myself in 10 years from now. Who the kollel is going to be? It's going to be my children." Right? So why should I give you for your kollel and then have to have my kids go collect for their kollel? Why don't we just cut that out?
Sure.
So, as far as I remember, Moshe Feinstein has a tshuva about this. The problem is I don't remember what he says. But there are certain, I don't want to give the name of the community, but there's a community that it's supposedly they've done this. And you can't say that it's usher. That much I know. You cannot say that it's usher. But the only issue with it is that you're supposed to give your tzedakah money right away. So putting it away now for use in 10 years, you worry about 10 years and 10 years from now. So that's where the controversy comes in. But in theory, it's okay. When people ask me, can they do this? I tell them, somewhere down the middle, like you can put a little bit away now, use Maaser money. But then if they don't end up learning a kollel, then you should not be able to give them that money.
But
it gets technical later on. But
let's say a regular donor fund where they just don't know where to give it, and they can essentially have more money to give to Maaser. But using a donor fund and investing it conservatively, even if just put in some government bonds, you'll make some interest.
But really you're supposed to give the money now. That's the thing. You're supposed to give the money now.
So is it okay? Is it okay to use a donor fund?
It is okay because you don't know where, as long as you don't know where and when you're giving your money to.
Right.
Let's say somebody's lucky and he makes himself, I don't know, $1 million and he's got $100,000 to give.
Right.
So what should he do? Just every guy that knocks on the door, he should just give it out to. He's not going to feel. He's not going to feel good. He's not going to know what happened. He's going to turn it around and say, "What do I do with my money?" Right. So put it in the donor fund and then.
So it's a good thing in a way. I think the fact that we have such a concept. Yeah. Also, the donor fund is if someone does give tzedakah, they save a lot on the taxes. They'll give more tzedakah.
Right. Well, yeah. And then they'll make more money. And then they'll make more money because that's what the Halacha clearly says. The more money you give, the more money you get. But that's the problem. That's what people give money when they shouldn't be because they say, like it says, if I give tzedakah, then I'm going to get money. That's all very nice if you have the money. If you don't have the money, same thing on Shabbos. On Shabbos, it says you get all your money back, right? We get your money paid back for Shabbos, which, by the way, I believe is an easy way to teach bitachon to children. Is like it's cholent. Okay, how many times do you want to go to Season Express? Right? Am I allowed to mention store names? Like how many? Not. Can we go? How many? It's all free. That's what it says. Very clear. It's a Gemara. It says, Chalamayid, all expenses are going to be paid back. You may not see it, but it does. So you just, at least I try and practice this. Just go. You want to go to the grocery store? I heard this once from Shimshon Pincus years ago. He said his kids knew on a Friday, they just go to the grocery and buy whatever they want. They don't have to ask.
Wow.
They don't have to just get it because if it's L'Kovet Shabbos, right? You have to make sure it's L'Kovet Shabbos. I have had my kids have asked me if they can get rollerblades because they want to rollerblade on Shabbos. I was like, I'm not so sure that suffices.
A scooter.
They tried, like a watch or a new, right? You got
a scooter.
You got right. So, but Shabbos it says you should spend and Hashem will pay it back.
Wow.
But it also says make your Shabbos into a weekday. And don't come on to others. So how do you understand those two? So basically, what is it? If you know you have the money coming in, so borrow, right? You have a deal next week. You don't know if it's going to make it or not, but in all probability, it doesn't make it. So borrow from somebody now, pay for Shabbos. I'll make sure you're covered. That's what Hashem says. But if you don't have anywhere where that income's coming from, then Hashem says, do not make your fancy Shabbos and then come on to somebody else. So meaning. That's something to keep in mind. With all the schoolers, and it's called a schooler, but it's halacha that if you give Maaser, you will get paid back. Aser b'shvil techasaser, all those things. That being said, you have to know that you have the money available. But yeah, so that's what we have to keep in mind. I once heard from Rabbi Willig from YU. Maybe I shouldn't say, is it recording or is it not recording? I once heard from Rabbi Willig from YU. I heard on a shir, so it's on probably on YU Torah.
Yes.
He said that schools are supposed to be bringing up the next generation, right? But the tuition crisis is actually shrinking the next generation, because that's one of the reasons people don't want to have kids.
Really?
Is because of I'm saying you look at a kid
saying
and
that makes sense.
It's part of people's calculation. I have another kid. Usually the man is calculating that, but the woman doesn't particularly care. But the man's like, whatever. That could be in the shalom bayis section podcast of that. Yeah. But it's you're looking at a child. It's I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it's short-sighted, but whatever. Anyways.
Yes. So, okay. So let's just talk a little bit more, shifting out of the Maaser, Tzedaka, charity conversation a little bit. And if you have a couple of lessons that are morals or lessons or things to tell people when it comes to money, the right perspective on it. Maybe you've seen some success stories of people that have done business the right way. Just a couple of good rabbinic teachings.
Okay, that's
I know it's a broad topic, but
it's a broad topic. Problem is, I don't remember from minute to minute. So you hear all sorts of stories, but I actually heard a story yesterday. I mean, firsthand story. Yesterday or the day before, where a yeshiva needed, I don't know exactly the numbers. Yeshiva needed the money. They asked for a loan from a wealthy individual, and I think a wealthy individual, and he said he was planning on giving the next year, but he was giving this year. He said, I'll give you the money now. A substantial amount. I don't remember, not more than, well into the 6 digits as far as I remember. And then an hour later, a debt that he never expected to ever get paid back came right in.
Wow.
So I don't know what's the exact amount. I think it was even more than the amount that he had just given. So that's just fresh in the mind that's the most unbelievable story that I remember in Tzedaka is not so much inspirational, how much success. I actually saw this. I was in Mishpacha magazine. I don't know if I had heard it independent of it, but it made it into Mishpacha magazine. If that's good or bad, I don't know whatever you made it.
It made it,
right?
Yeah.
Where they were collecting money in Lakewood. The story was in Lakewood, which, by the way, in Lakewood, when there's a tzara that happens, we should never know from it, but when there's a man, they collect that money in a week. They have that money collected. Wow. And I've had people come to me and say, how come in the 5 towns when this thing's happened, you guys can't get it together? But maybe that's too much. That's a question that I've been asked multiple times from multiple places. There's different interesting answers, but that's clearly not for now. But anyway, so they were collecting money. And then the gabbai who was collecting the money gets a knock on the door. And he says, and the fellow tells him, I heard you have enough money already for your tzedakah. So he says, yeah, we have enough money. He says, so I gave you head checks. Now, I don't remember the numbers, but I gave you head checks, I think, for $10 a week or $10 a month for the entire year. Or I don't know, whatever the number was. And it was really, really difficult for me to give you that money. So if you don't need it, if maybe we can, now halachically whether that's allowed or not, because once you give the tzedakah, you can't take it back. So the fellow said, you mind asking me like what you did here? He said, yeah, we decided that we will have no meat in our cholent for the rest of the year. And we're going to take that money from the meat from the cholent, and we're going to give it to this widow and these orphans. Wow. But we really would like to have meat in our cholent. So can you imagine? That is the way. Correct. So you have lots of people that are just giving. Now, again, without getting into whether they should be, I'm not so sure if they would have asked that question, we would say to not do that. But the point is that so many, like people ask, so what are the most common questions asked? So obviously, Taras and Mishpach is number one, and then Kashrus. I would say Maaser is probably next.
Wow.
or definitely in the top. And people are they're giving their Maaser. They want to know where to give it to, how to give it to it. And you have some funny ones, but I don't want to say, maybe somebody would be listening, but there's a real interesting, they want different attainment, like they want to do shtick by a chasana. Can they use Maaser money for that? Right?
It's like a chesed.
Yeah, because it's chesed, right? It's simchas chasana v'kala, which is a mitzvah. You know, that type of one wanted to use Maaser lately for something, dating, to help out people dating. Right? It's just what Klal Yisrael is trying to do is amazing.
Yeah.
But but I don't want to sound too. I mean, we love to hear the inspiring stories. Oh yeah, and it worked out. But that doesn't mean that we don't have to do it just because we want to get inspired. Really, we should be giving tzedakah because that's what that's what Hashem mandates. That's how we share the burden, et cetera, et cetera. Like, it is interesting that the only time you can test Hashem,
right,
is with giving tzedakah. Now, people test Hashem and they say, hey, it didn't work.
Right.
Because you have the opinions that say that test only works with giving 10% of your grain, like Trumas and Maaser. It doesn't mean.
Oh. Okay.
Many opinions say that. So, meaning there's always a defense. That's the problem. You need to have betachon. You need to have the faith in that. But but that Klal Yisrael is giving. I don't know. They're giving Maaser. I think that's when you were discussing before about sustaining. How it's, what do you call it? What was the name you gave it? The
Jewish economics.
Jewish economics. I think a lot of it has to do with. Tzedaka. I mean, many people have said, when I started giving the tzedaka or giving more tzedaka, I saw more.
I mean, I see this all the time with the amount of tzedaka that's being given is unbelievable. Do you feel the same?
Yeah, 100%.
I see that it's, I'm talking about people that are, maybe well off, but not like, Bill Gates, something like that. But they're giving, 10% of whatever they make, even though if they're not sticking by the rules. The main thing here with the podcast and the middle class is that, give tzedakah, give Maaser, but also know that there's a calculation behind it, what you have to and what you don't have to give. And it's okay if there's, kaddish atzmacha b'mutar loch, if you have things that are okay and you need to support your family, there are things that are taken off your gross income that you don't have to take Maaser off. You don't automatically take 10%. And then also to the other extreme, if someone's in credit card debt, they should not be giving.
100%, that for sure.
They shouldn't. And if they have tuition deductions, maybe let's end with this last halacha, the order of giving tzedakah. Who has priority? Maybe, I don't know if it's a Maaser discussion or a general discussion.
No, there's a priority of giving tzedakah.
So who comes first?
So family comes first.
Family comes first.
Okay. And it comes up a lot. Parents need help, elderly parents need help. That comes first. Most certainly you can use Maaser for that. However, don't tell the parents that you're using Maaser. That's an important point. You should use Maaser for parents, siblings, children, of course. But I would say that's first. Then it's the poor of your own city.
Your own city, and that would include yeshivas, let's say.
Yeah, for certain. And supporting Torah, which is the same thing. Right? Giving money to yeshivas is you're supporting Torah and you're supporting the poor.
That's right.
You're really covering both. When giving to yeshiva, that's considered giving to the poor. But poor of your own city, how you define your own city, right, is maybe becoming a little bit more vague with technology. Like the whole world is becoming one place. Yerushalayim gets a priority, and then Eretz Yisrael gets a priority.
Interesting.
So, but really, yeah, you're right. In the local economy is more important.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Local economy.
So, but I want to tell you something. Now you remind me. There's many people giving 20%.
Really?
I've got many questions from people who say I'm already giving 20%. I don't remember in what context why they're telling me that, but because they want the second 10%, you can be more lenient as to what the 10% goes to. There's an opinion that says that the second 10% can actually go for required mitzvahs. Like you can buy lulav and esrog with your second 10%.
Oh, interesting.
Right, there's opinions that say that. So, but yeah, you'd be surprised. There's people really giving 20%.
20%.
Yeah, it's yeah. You hope that they could afford it.
You hope.
You hope they're doing it properly. But like there's worse things in the world. Unless there's worse things in the world. No, not if you're going into debt.
Right.
That's a no. That's absolutely not. If you're going into debt to get tzedakah, that's wrong. But if you're not going into debt, okay, so you're not putting money away for your kids. But you're giving tzedakah, that Hashem that's up there that gave you your first $1,000 can give you the second 1,000 without a problem.
I would say I'll throw this in there because it's been spoken about a lot now recently, having life insurance. Oh. So let's say someone spends $500 a month on tzedakah and they don't have life insurance. Because I know this is a big thing. I think, again, a lot of financial planning needs to be discussed. As the Rav mentioned, financial advisor, you have to really go through each thing. But life insurance specifically, I think, is a big talk today, and a lot of people don't have it. Could they use Maaser money for that?
Can they use Maaser money for
life insurance?
Okay, so that's already a little bit tougher to say to use the Maaser money. The question
or
more,
take it off the top.
Right, take it off the top. Take it off the top.
Yeah.
I could hear taking it off the top a lot faster. I would say right off the bat, I would say taking off the top would be allowed. To use Maaser for it, also debatable. It's also debatable.
It's not outlandish.
Right, because it's become accepted, I think, to have life insurance. I would think it's considered.
It's accepted. You should have it, yeah.
Well, not enough people have it.
Not enough people
have really,
it, yeah.
It should be. It should be. I mean, everybody should have some form of life insurance. Now, it was initially when life insurance came out, so it was a big issue. Is it a lack of bitachon, et cetera, et cetera? But you know what? We have things that nobody gets engaged without Dor Yesharim, right? Dor Yesharim meaning you check the genetics, right?
Right.
A lot of rabbis, when that came out, were anti. A lot of controversy where Moshe Feinstein held about it, right? So they were anti. It's just the lack of faith. What is it? The numbers. Even if they both matches, it's 25%. So what's the chances? Now, obviously, it worked. It eradicated. It did away with Tay-Sachs. But it's accepted to do that, right? So now I think it's accepted to have life insurance in some way, shape, or form. So then, therefore, that's considered an expense,
right?
So if you can't afford life insurance, so then that means you're not making ends meet. So then it would come off the top.
Come off the top.
Yeah, that's what I would think.
I mean, especially
now,
also
not term. That
no.
Right.
No.
Not going down that road.
But I think also to add that life insurance is if you don't have it, you'll come on to other people.
Correct. You might come on.
Might come on. So that's another financial planning piece there. I think there's a lot more to talk about. I guess if someone has a question, they can always email us, middleclassalpert@gmail.com, or text the rabbi.
You can do that.
Always text the rabbi. We'll be happy to give out the number, or WhatsApp the rabbi.
Oh, yeah. I prefer text, actually, but I know we've been WhatsApping, only because the Apple Watch gives a lot more...
beeps?
No, it have a lot more options to answer from the watch as opposed to the WhatsApp. Only gives you like 3 pre.
Can't talk right now. Or,
correct,
or
right.
I'm
Or
busy.
no, I have pre.
No kidding.
No, if I type into my phone, MA, you will get a link to that automatically.
Interesting.
Right. And,
that's another
I could
thing.
show you, if you want to have a podcast about technology and how to use it to your advantage, I can. I'm not offering to do that, but I'm just saying.
Well, too late, Rabbi. We're gonna maybe have you again because we still have a lot to talk about. But it's really been a schus and a pleasure. And again, if someone wants the Maaser sheet, let us know.
Or you can go on the website. There is a website with all the sheets.
Right.
So TY was it?
What's it?
Not. There's no advertising in it, so it's okay. As much as it's been asked, this is not a shameless plug. Right. This is not a shameless plug. There's no end game here.
There's no ad for the Rav here.
tystein@yahoo.com. tystein.com. Yeah.
tystein.com.
I got my email, one of my emails, tystein@yahoo.
Yeah, a lot of PDFs. Anyway, in general, Halacha is wonderfully, you know, I mean, I use it all the time.
Like I said, ADHD from an ADHD guy. That's how it
yes, succinct, quick,
Yeah.
To the point. But again, what a pleasure.
Thank you.
And
appreciate
I hope you enjoyed.
having me. Of course I enjoyed.
Of course you enjoyed.
Thank you.
And everyone should contact us with any feedback, of course. Email, they can call, text the rabbi if they want the PDF. Also, be in touch. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay.